Welcome back to the channel, everyone. Today we're going to be talking about the online marketplace known as Mercari. Now, I want to stress that I'm talking about the use of Mercari specifically with trading cards. If you buy clothing or figurines or many of the other things that they sell on this platform, you may have a completely different experience, but I'm just going based off the trading card buying and selling, of course. And I want to mention that I'm also not sponsored by anyone in this video, so Mercari's not sponsoring me, no one's sponsoring me. This is purely my opinion, so if I say something positive, I genuinely think it's a good thing that Mercari is doing, and if I think there's something negative, it's something that I think they should work on, and I have zero bias going into the video. I also want to say that, of course, in this video, we're going to go over what Mercari is. If you've never heard of it before, we'll go into some of the pros and cons of being both a buyer and seller, and lastly, I'll share you my experience with using the platform. I've used it for about a month and a half now, so I'll kind of give you my comparison of this app and this platform versus like eBay or TCG Player, one of the two, and then yeah, we'll figure out, hopefully by the end of the video, if Mercari is worth using for your trading cards. So, what is Mercari? Mercari is an online marketplace founded by Japanese entrepreneur Shinichiro Yamada. Now, the e-commerce website has expanded to the United States with its branch headquartered in Palo Alto, California. In 2020, Mercari entered the United Kingdom market and acquired the American fashion resale app Vinted. The Mercari selling platform currently attracts more than 20 million users per month for online shopping, has hosted over 3 billion listings, and generates an annual gross merchandise value of 881.6 billion Japanese yen. The company aims to use online sales to connect people worldwide and create a world where everyone can reach their full potential. So personally, I've heard of Mercari several different times throughout my time in the community, and I will say the first time I remember, I've heard about it a lot, but the first time I distinctly remember hearing about it was from a guy named Swirl Authority on Instagram. So I followed him for quite some time. Based on his name, you can kind of gather the fact that he likes swirls in the artworks of Pokemon cards, so he has a lot of cool postings. Big shout out to him, go follow him on Instagram, he's got some really good posts. But yeah, one day, I remember it was a couple years ago, I can't remember, it was a while ago now, but he had posted on his story, and I think it was one of his normal posts of just a really cool swirl on the back of one of his Pokemon cards. And I think, of course, he probably gets asked quite a lot, where do you get your cards from? Where do you get these specifically swirl cards from? And so he said on his story one day that he goes to Mercari and he types in swirl as the tag or as the search line on Mercari, and that's where he finds his Pokemon card. So I thought, okay, so that's a relatively big guy on Instagram, and he gets all of his posting ideas and all of his cards pretty much from Mercari. Now, I don't know if that's the case now. That was, like I say, quite a while ago, but that was the first time I really saw someone relatively, relevant within the community buying through Mercari. And then the next time I heard of it was actually last month in July. A guy that I did some dealings with at trade night, and I actually had worked with him, did some sales with him prior to that day. So he's kind of a regular at these card shows, and we were at trade night, and I was dealing with some One Piece cards with him. We ended up settling on a deal, but at the end of it, he sort of said, have you used Mercari before? And I was like, yeah, I've heard of it. I've heard good things and bad things, but I've never actually used it as a selling platform. And he was like, dude, it's great. You need to get on that, definitely. And I think he was selling One Piece cards specifically, but I think he said he does anything. So I was like, okay, I may look into it. He said, yeah, it's great. It's just there's no selling fees. The only downside is that you don't get paid until they receive the card, the customer receives the card, but otherwise it's really not that big of a deal, and it's a really good platform. You should use it. So I was like, okay, so that's someone in person and someone I know online that has sort of given Mercari a good rep. But I'm personally a trial and error type of person, so I don't usually take anyone's opinion at face value. I like to figure it out myself and see if it's worthwhile my time. So I personally, looked into it after that card show. I was like, okay, I've had a couple people now recommend it for me. Let me see what it's all about. I read into it. Again, I read some horror stories of returns and buyers kind of manipulating certain sellers when it comes to buying things. So I was very hesitant, but ultimately I said, let's just give it a go. I won't do big risk. I won't put like big expensive cards on there, and we'll just kind of see how it goes. And they had a really good promotion at the time. If I did 100 listings as a seller, they would give me an $100 credit within 2 weeks of me posting it all. So I was like, okay, yeah, I'll do that and get a free $100 $100 to, you know, spend and buy some cards. So that was the ultimate incentive for me, and so I did that. And yeah, so I'll kind of explain what all I did within that time period. It's been about a month and a half, like I say. So I think let's go ahead and move on to some of the pros and cons, and let's start with the pros and cons as a buyer on Mercari. So starting with the pros, Mercari has a very easy to use platform. So finding the cards you want is easier than you think. After you've made your account and have searched for specific cards or looked at someone's store page, on the home screen of Mercari, you will now have a For You section, and that automatically starts showing you listings based on your searching history. eBay does something similar, but personally I think Mercari's For You page is a bit better than eBay's Picks For You. I think that's what they call it on eBay, just because of the layout of the page. So visually for me it's much better than eBay. I actually prefer the death scroll here, so you can basically just show thousands of listings and you just keep on scrolling. I actually kind of prefer that from a shopping experience. At least with eBay, you know, you're very specifically going to have, you know, if you type something, it's going to specifically show you exactly what you want. But if I just type in like Scyther, for example, onto Mercari, and I just want to look for different Scythers and all the different variants, it's a little bit better, I would say, in showing you all your different options. Like I say, it's just a death scroll mechanic, so you can just keep going forever. And they kind of fit more listings on a page at once, where eBay is definitely stacked, you know, when it comes to the titles, and there's just less on the page in general. So I do kind of like the layout of Mercari in comparison to some of the other apps from a buying perspective. That leads me to my next pro that Mercari has for buyers, and that's the messaging, the like and comment, and bundle system they have built into their platform. So if I found a seller who had 3 cards I wanted, I could add all 3 cards to my cart, and in the checkout screen ask for a bundle price. This automatically makes the shipping cost $3.99, which is a slight downside, but ultimately it's still cheaper bundling this way rather than buying from multiple different sellers. And I'd say 9 times out of 10 the buyer will accept your offer, of course, if it's a reasonable offer, of course. I just look at eBay last sold and sort of get a gauge of where the price actually should be for a card, and then I'll, you know, look at the pictures and determine sort of the condition of the card, and then base my offer off that. So, you know, I'll add it all up, and then I'll send the offer, maybe do a couple dollars below just to see if they, you know, they buy it, and maybe you can get a bit better of a deal. And like I say, 9 times out of 10, most of the time they want to sell, so they will accept the deal. So that's what I would suggest you do if you want to start bundling and buying from the same seller. You can also just message the seller beforehand and just make sure that they're okay with negotiations. If they don't do bundle deals, then you can find out and not waste your time beforehand. It's just like eBay, you can message any seller based off, you know, whatever they're listing, so you can do that as well. That's what I'd suggest. There's also a really handy tool that's used on Mercari. It's similar to the watch list on eBay, so it's just called My Likes on Mercari. So basically, you know, you can go through different products and you can actually like it, and then of course it will save that product in your My Like section on your profile. So if, you know, what I'll do if I want to try and do a bundle deal, I'll go through someone's store and they may have 1,000 listings, right? So you might have to scroll through quite a lot, and you can search within their store as well. So if you're looking for something specific, you can do that. But you can like everything that they have, or everything that you want that they have, and then you could go back to your My Like section and then you can bundle it all together. And that's sort of a easier way of doing it. It's very similar to the watch list system that eBay has, but the one thing that I think Mercari does very well, and I've not really seen it before on these sort of marketplace environment. I've seen it on Facebook Marketplace a little bit, but in general, they have a comment section on the actual listing itself. So this is really useful for buyers. The thing about Mercari, and I'll talk about this in sort of the pros and cons of being a seller, and I guess here it applies as a buyer as well, but there are a lot of sellers that aren't professional sellers, right? They're just regular people that treat this like a Facebook marketplace. They don't actually know what they have, and they don't know where to find pricings or accurate pricings of the cars that they're selling. So you will have somebody post like a Pidgey, you know, like let's just use like a base set Pidgey, and they'll post it for like $80 when it's like a $2 card, right? And so I've seen some people in the comments say, hey, you know, according to price charting or eBay last sold or whatever, this is actually a $2 card, it's not worth $80. So if you're sort of a naive buyer and you don't quite know, you just assume, oh, it's $80 because it must be rare, you can now look at that comment section and go, oh wait, no, it's actually $2, so I'm not going to buy this for $80, right? And so that also helps the seller as well, because he may not know any different. Like I say, they may not know any different. So of course, you know, if somebody points out, hey, that's just not the right price, then they can go back and edit it and make it lower. I also see this really useful for fake cards. So just like, like I say, with sellers not knowing what they have, it kind of comes with the territory that there's going to be some fake cards that will be on the market. There's always bad actors in any platform, so eBay will always sell fake cards. TCG Player is common to have it too. But on Mercari, I've definitely seen a lot of postings where I've just scrolled by and gone, yeah, that's fake. And so, luckily, somebody can comment on there and go, hey, that's a fake card. So it can kind of, if you don't know any different, like I say, from a buyer perspective, you won't get caught with accidentally buying a fake card. So that's a pretty cool feature. Like I say, I don't see a comment section. There's not a comment section on like eBay, for example, or TCG Player. So those are just a couple of the platforms to sort of compare to. So I do enjoy that from a buyer's perspective when it comes to Mercari. So the last pro that I would say Mercari has from a buyer's perspective would be the credit system that they have. So like I said, when I first started, I was obviously doing it to be a seller, but they would give me credits to be a seller, and then I can use that money to actually buy more on Mercari. So they gave me $100, and that was basically a free $100 for $300 worth of cards. So for me, that was a pretty cool credit system. They always have good incentives. Any app that's sort of new, and Mercari isn't really new to be honest, but new within the past 5 years, they're always trying to give incentives to get people to sign on. So I know for me, when I first signed up, I didn't have the referral code or anything, but within 24 hours, they gave me a $5 credit. So that was quite nice. And of course, I used that to get my first free card, if you will. They do have a decent referral system as well for both buying and selling. I'll leave my referral code in the description below if you want to sign up using that. You'll get a free $10 credit on your first purchase. And as far as I know, you can do the same thing I did and find a card that, with the shipping fees and altogether equal your exact credit amount, so you don't have to pay anything out of pocket. That's what I did with that $5 credit I was given in that first 24 hours. Their credit system also applies to everything that you sell on Mercari, right? So I've seen a lot of sellers actually do this, and they'll have in their description, hey, any card that you buy off me will go towards me buying the card I really want. So it is sort of a benefit from a buyer-seller perspective, but I will say that generally a lot of people do that. They will sell not their bulk cards, that would be kind of unfair to say, but cards they just don't want in their collection, and then they'll use the money that they've received from buyers, and then they'll use that credit and they'll buy from a seller on Mercari. So it is kind of a nice little ecosystem there when it comes to a buyer-seller relationship with their credit system. Basically, people can get cards, sellers will get credit for the sell of their product, but a buyer might just be using a free credit that they've earned anyway. So it's sort of Mercari buying from a seller, if you will, and out of pocket, no one loses. So it's sort of a win-win when it comes to their credit system. So I do quite enjoy that from Mercari compared to some of the other platforms. I know eBay does that as well, but I know TCG Player doesn't, for example. And unless you've got like an Amazon gift card, I don't think you could do it through Amazon or even Facebook Marketplace. So it is kind of a cool system that they've got with Mercari there, and I think it does help the buyer-seller relationship within the marketplace. Let's move on now to some of the cons as being a buyer on Mercari. Now, there are quite a lot of cons, unfortunately, and let's start with the fees. Yeah, the fees are the worst part of Mercari. This is really a big benefit of being a seller on Mercari, but it does sort of come out the pocket of the buyer. So all the fees that you'd normally get if you were selling on eBay or TCG Play, all those little like selling fees and, even shipping costs, but just general fees for listing fees. There's so many different fees, and they really take a bottom line from the seller. So that's why usually those cards will be a bit more expensive than you'd think, because sellers are trying to cover for that fee, right? Well, with Mercari, the sellers don't get that fee, but it means that the buyer has to pay up front that fee, right? So, for example, that $5 credit I had, I was like, okay, I've got $5 credit, so that means I could, whatever listing has $5 or maybe $4, I'll account for 68 cents of shipping and then tax on top of that. So I was looking for $4 cards. And so when I was going through that, I would find a $4 card, 68 cents shipping. I'm like, okay, that must be just under $5. I can get it for free. Nope, there's also a 75-cent or a dollar fee on top of all that. So I ended up having to get like a $2 card that after the fees and all the shipping cost ended up equaling about $5. So that's the only downside, I would say, or one of the downsides of buying on Mercari. You have to pay up front a lot of fees, and it really varies depending on what you're buying. Like, I've seen certain fees be 25 cents and then other fees be 75 cents. It's not, I don't want to say it's random, but to me it seems like it's based on the actual weight of the cost of the package itself, of whatever you're buying. So I'll show you some examples here. We can just go through it. So you can see on this posting, it obviously has, you know, fees on top of the shipping cost. So another major downside of buying on Mercari is finding reputable sellers. Now, it's not impossible. If you managed to catch my last mail day video, I had several different sellers with that $100 credit I got, and the first one was great. You know, it had everything that I wanted. Everything was labeled correctly, and then the second one sort of had cards that were labeled near mint, but probably really weren't near mint at all, and so that can affect the pricing, and it sort of affects what I was expected to get. I didn't, you know, harp on it. I didn't leave a negative review or anything. It is what it is. It can be on the buyer, it can be on me. Maybe I looked at the pictures incorrectly. But either way, you know, it's sometimes harder finding reputable sellers on Mercari just because there isn't as many, you know, stores. There's not as many small businesses that actually sell on there. It's mainly going to be more random people that maybe don't have the etiquette of selling trading cards. You know, they don't know how to take the right pictures. They maybe don't take enough pictures. They don't know what's near mint and what's lightly played. They can't sort of accurately depict that. So that's the only downside I would say with reputable sellers, finding them on Mercari. They're probably much harder to find than on eBay or TCG Player. And then I'll talk about their review system as well. They have a review system just like eBay. You know, you get a review for buying a product and you get a review for selling the product. I'll kind of explain that. I think, you know, it's definitely worth mentioning in the sellers' pros and cons, but I'm going to go ahead and mention it now because it's something that I actually noticed really recently with a couple of my sales. And I think it's a scam technique. I want to say that's what it is. I'll kind of say the process of how it works, and then you can maybe have your own opinion on it. I'm not 100% sure of why they do it yet, and anytime something's confusing when somebody abuses a rating system or something, it usually is some sort of scam. That they're trying some fishy stuff to maybe try and, you know, convince people to buy off them. So how this process works, right? So I'm scrolling through Mercari, I buy a card, the seller gets a notification, it says, hey, you know, your product's just been sold. You then print off the shipping label, you package it, and then you let the buyer know, hey, I've dropped it off at the post office. Now, you can do this at 10 o'clock at night, and then obviously the customer knows that the post office isn't open, so you'll ship it next day, right? And so, you know, that's what I'll do if I get a sale on the weekend. Like, I got a sale today on Saturday, and, you know, of course, the post office is already closed now, so I'll post it on Monday. You know, I'll actually deliver it on Monday, but I'll say that I've shipped it. I'll say that I've, you know, packaged it and everything. And then once you've said that, then the customer waits to receive the card, right? And then they have 3 days once they've received it to then rate you, to say, yeah, it's everything that I wanted, great. And then when they've done that, then you as the seller get paid for that, you know, card. So basically what I've seen is that I'll sell the card, and then immediately that buyer will say that they've received it and that they'll rate me for it. And so it's kind of weird because, of course, right, I've only just sent it. It's not instant transmission. You know, it's not like it's going there in a time machine and managing to find its way to their mailbox. It is obviously going to take 3 or 4 days for them to even receive it. So they buy it off me, I say that I've shipped it, and they immediately say that they've received it, they rate me, and then if I want to get paid for that, I have to then rate them, right? So if I want my $3 instantaneously, then I have to give them a rating. So generally, if it's that quick, why wouldn't I give them 5 stars? I've been paid immediately, they've said that they've received it, so boom, you give them a 5-star review. So, where I think there's some scam, some fishy stuff going on here, is that, you know, obviously they're saying they received it when they haven't received it yet, and they're getting a free review. So, I actually noticed this with one of my customers that I had, and it was actually earlier this month. I shipped it like, I think the 6th or 7th of August, and it just got back to me today saying return to sender. Basically, the address was incorrect, or the address either didn't exist or just wasn't there anymore. There's obviously a lot of different reasons. It could be a mail system problem. But that's one of those guys, like I say, that bought my card and then rated me straight away, said that he received it. So I've got the card back now. He never received it, but he's never messaged me. He's never said, hey, where was it? He's basically already gotten his review. I go to look at his profile, and he has 7 sales, or he's put 7, and they're very expensive cards. Like, we're talking, Dark Charizards, we're talking, like, vintage stuff. So I'm now thinking, okay, is he just review farming, if you will? Like, is he just basically saying, I'll buy a dollar card, because it was only $1, it was really cheap. I'll use my credit, or whatever he's got, and buy these $1 cards, say that I've received it straight away, so they get paid to basically give me a 5-star review, do that 7-8 times, and then now on my profile it looks like I'm a reputable seller. Like I've done 8 complete transactions, I've gotten 5 stars on all 8 of them, so you can trust me as a seller now. And then they go and sell these expensive cards and potentially are scamming people when they buy it, right? You never know. I mean, I can't confirm that entirely, but why would they just automatically try and get the review straight away? Now, it could also be legitimate, like they're starting with 0 and they want to start building reputation, so they don't mind taking the hit of a dollar card, even if it doesn't get to them, just so they can start building up reputation. But I'll kind of tell you, at least with me personally, I never did that. I never needed to do that. I started from 0, and I've actually gotten about 30 reviews, and it's all positive so far. And I've gotten sales, even with 0 reputation. So you don't necessarily need to do that as long as you back up what you're selling. Like, as long as you know what you're selling, you know what it's worth, you know what its condition is, that's how you become a reputable seller. So I don't know 100% why people do it, but just keep that in mind. Like, be wary of that when it comes to the review system on Mercari. Just double check. It's just like eBay, where they'll have like a buying reputation and then a selling reputation. Just make sure when you're buying off a seller, you're looking at confirmed sales reputation, if you will, like happy customers that have given them a 5-star review based on what they're selling, not based on what they're buying, because there's very little reasons why you would give a buyer a review less than 5 stars. It's just there's no real need for that. So I don't know. So definitely do your due diligence when it comes to that. So the last major downside, and it's really not that big of a deal, but it has to do with the shipping fees. So of course, like I said earlier, if you bundle 3 cards together, no matter what, if they're 1 ounce and it should be 68 cents, and you put it all together, that should be 3 cents. It should be like $1.18 envelope delivery. It automatically will charge you $3.99. So you probably want to get more than 3 cards. Like I say, it's not that big of a deal. If you bundle a lot together, it actually makes sense. It's a cheaper shipping method. But no matter what, unless all the products you're buying have free shipping on it, there's no way that you can change it from like 1 ounce to 3 ounce that I've seen. It will automatically charge you $3.99, which is basically like a bubble mailer delivery, right? It's track shipping. Like I say, it's not that big of a deal, but it technically is a con when it comes to buying. When it comes to shipping costs, it will just cost you generally more. But like I say, it will still be cheaper than buying from individuals. So in the long run, it's really not that big of a deal. Okay, let's move on now to some of the pros and cons of being a seller on Mercari. Starting with the pros, of course, the biggest thing and biggest appeal of selling on Mercari is there is no selling fees. So you just get a lot more back for what you're selling. So this is something that I hate about eBay and some of the other platforms. They charge you an arm and a leg in selling fees whenever you try and sell something. So if you sell a $15 card, you're probably going to only get $12 in profit from that. And then if you're having to pay shipping as well, if it's $3 shipping out of your pocket, then you're really only making $9 on a $15 card, right? With Mercari, if you sell it for $15, you get $15. So that's a very positive thing, even if, like I say, it takes a week for you to get paid because you've got to wait until the buyer actually receives the card. And then that can be sort of a downside as well, which I'll talk about later on in some of the cons of being a seller. But, in general, like I say, you get more bang for your buck, which is obviously an extremely positive thing. The next pro I would say is easy listing. It has a very easy listing mechanic. So you literally just, I do it on my phone. It's actually probably the only way really you should do it, but on my phone you just go, you've got the title, you've got a description, you put some hashtags in there just to kind of show, and I would just, if it's a sports card, say sports cards. If it's a Pokemon cards for sale, things like that. Pretty easy. There's 7 hashtags that you can choose from, and then you literally just do the shipping cost, and then you do the price, and then they do have some cool features with the selling process in terms of what they have to offer. They have something called smart listing or smart pricing. So basically you can automatically set a card. Let's say you're selling a card for $3, but you don't mind it selling for $1.50. So you can list it for $3, and then gradually it will go down every update or so, which might be every day until you sell it, and it will go down to that minimum price. So it's a little bit different than eBay, right? Because eBay, you do like a best offer system. So you may list a card for $20, but you say best offers, you'd accept an offer that's $10, but you're waiting on the actual customer themselves to make that offer. And sometimes if they see a $20 card, they don't even bother, sending you an offer. They just go, that's overpriced. It's $20, which I see happen a lot. And it's like, dude, there's a best send them an offer and you probably will get it cheaper, right? But they don't, like I say, buyers are sometimes very negligent when it comes to that stuff. But with Mercari, it's built in. So you can literally just set a price, and then it will gradually go down until it reaches the bare minimum that you want to sell it for. And I actually quite enjoy that, to be honest. I'll do that with a lot of my cards. I'll list it for a couple bucks, see if it gets any bites, and then if not, I don't mind it going for like $1 or $2, depending on the actual listing price itself. So that's pretty cool. They have like a minimum offer price as well. So if someone sends you an offer, it will automatically accept it no matter what. eBay does that as well, just like a minimal offer, and you can just, it will automatically accept it if someone does send you an offer. And then you can actually send offers to likers as well. So when I said before the system with the products, how you can like a product, the seller gets notified that you've liked their product, and then you can, I've only been able to do it on my computer. I actually can't do it through mobile, which I don't know why. I think they need to fix that, because I do all my listings on mobile, but then when I look through all my listings on my mobile app, I can't actually, there's not as many options. Where on the computer, you'll go through it and you'll see all your listings, and you'll see all the people that have liked it, or you can see specifically who's liked it as well. But generally, you'll have like an option to edit the listing or offer to likers. And so basically, if it hasn't sold in a while, but you've got like 4 or 5 likes on it, it's just like sending an offer on eBay. You just go to it and you send them an offer. I think it has to be a minimum of like 10% off or something like that. So it will do that automatically for you, the minimum price you can send to offer to likers, and you can just click that and then hopefully get a quicker sale. So I do like that system that they have there when it comes to selling. And in general, like I say, with the no selling fees, you get a lot more bang for your buck, and I think that is probably the biggest positive side of Mercari in general when it comes to selling. Now let's move on to the cons of being a seller on Mercari, and there are unfortunately quite a few. There's one in particular that I've personally not experienced, but I've seen other sellers specifically say this is the worst part of selling on Mercari, and so we'll kind of dive into that. But let's start with the withdrawal fee. It's actually not that big of a deal, but it is still annoying. So you don't get any fees, of course, for selling, or like, listing fees. You don't get any of that, so you do get more bang for your buck. But if you want to withdraw your balance to your bank, you can either do like the 5-day delivery, and you get charged $2 for that. And then if you want to do it instantaneously, you get charged $3. Now, $3 and $2, I mean, you're kind of like, why are you charging me for getting the money that I've sold? It is annoying, but in theory, when you look at it compared to the fees on like eBay and TCG Player, paying $2 to get all your fees from like, $100 worth of sales, you'd much rather take $98 for everything that you've sold rather than, probably only getting $70 or $60 after all the fees that you have to pay with eBay and some of the other platforms. So I will say it's not that bad. I mean, only having to pay $2 or $3 for a withdrawal fee isn't too bad. It is quite annoying though, and it's definitely, I would consider, a con of selling on Mercari. That's why they sort of incentivize you to, whatever you sell, to buy a product with the money that you've earned selling, and then if not, then you have to take a fee to withdraw it to your bank. So, it is what it is. Like I say, it's not that big of a deal, but it's definitely a con. And then I kind of talked about it earlier with the process of buying and selling on Mercari, but the payment, of course, right? So you don't receive your payment until the person has actually received the card. They've rated you, and then you rate them back as a seller. So that's the only way that you can get paid. And I will say the biggest downside of doing that is, okay, one, it might take 5 days for them to receive it. Then they have 3 days to like receive the card and then give you a rating. Well, I had the other day, that person never rated me. So it was 5 days to get them shipped. I was like, okay. And then it said that it delivered, so they received it, and then they have 3 full days to then rate me, which they never did. So then Mercari will then step in and say, okay, we're going to give you credit for this sale now, but that was like on the 4th day. So really, a transaction that probably I should have been paid for within 5 days ended up being almost like a week and a half, because the buyer themselves didn't credit me for what they received. So that can happen too. And the downside of that is I also can't rate them. Like, I can't rate them as a buyer because the transaction basically was never completed by them. So I actually can't go back and rate them and say, like 4 stars out of 5. They never said that they received it, or whatever the case might be. It's just a bit more of a time waste when it comes to you receiving your payment, which does suck. It's not the end of the world, like I say, but that was like a $5 card for me, so I kind of wanted to get paid for that, right? But that's okay. It's a small con of selling on Mercari, but it's definitely a con, I would say. Not the singer, just a con, a bad thing of Mercari. And then we've got the return and refund loophole. So I've personally yet to experience this. I'm sort of living life on the edge because I'm doing it and I have a chance that this will happen to me, but it has yet to happen to me, so fingers crossed that it never does. But I've read, actually it was one of the buyers that I bought from my mail day video, and on her profile, which I'll just show you here so you can read along with me. But basically what she's saying is that if you sell a card for 1 ounce, right, which is the cheapest shipping cost possible. So every card, if you don't know, every card is weighs less than an ounce, right? So you can sell one individual card with a top loader, with a team bag, in an envelope, with tape, right, and it can all be under 1 ounce. So generally, that's how I ship my things. I want it to be as cost efficient as possible for my customers. So without it being free shipping, they only usually have to pay 68 cents shipping cost, and I can get a card, or even 2 cards usually, under that 1 ounce weight limit, right? Well, the downside, and this is just ridiculous to me, this is something they have to fix. Like I say, I've not experienced it myself, I'm lucky, but apparently this buyer in particular has experienced this, and basically buyers can say that they didn't receive it, or there's some sort of return loophole, if you will, like they try and return it, or they either return it and then don't actually send the card back, or they request a refund and then they don't return the card themselves. And if the product that you've sold is that 1 ounce, support won't help you. So if you contact support and say, hey, look, this buyer's trying to basically scam me and not give me the card on refund, or whatever the case might be, they won't help you because the card that you're selling is under 1 ounce. So they only help with products that are sold 3 ounces and higher, which is ridiculous. Why even have 1 ounce as an option if you're not going to help from a support perspective? So in my opinion, it's like, I want to make my shipping cost 1 ounce because that's accurate. Like, the card itself is under 1 ounce. You deserve it to be only 68 cents. But if that means that you try and mess with me in terms of, do a refund or do a return that's not true, or, just like I say, some BS, then support won't help me, and you'll just get the card and you'll get your money back. Like, it's a terrible system, right? So that's the biggest downside. Like I say, I've not really experienced it myself, but the second I do, that's going to be very annoying. And in theory, because any card is under 1 ounce, if you sold a $100 card, for example, with 68-cent shipping, then they could just take your money, right? So I wouldn't recommend doing that. I would recommend any card. I usually do it over $15. If it's anything over $15, then say that it's 3 ounces at least. So you get, it's like $1.16 shipping, or very worst case, which is what I do now, just do the $3.99 track delivery. So if it's over $15 or $20, then do $3.99 track delivery. It's bubble mailer type delivery, and it's just easier to track. The post office can know if there's any shenanigans going on. And of course, support on Mercari will help you out if there's any issues. So I just recommend doing that. You shouldn't have to do it with $1 card though, so that's just like the ridiculous part of it. You should be able to just do 68-cent shipping and not have to worry about that. Like I say, I haven't worried about it, but I know a lot of people have, and that is a major downside of selling on Mercari when it comes to the bad actors of some buyers on the platform. And that will just come with the territory. There is always bad buyers and bad sellers and bad actors in any platform. So you just got to keep that in mind. Like I say, when I went through this, when I sort of did my experience, which I'll kind of go into next in terms of my opinion on the platform and my experience with the platform, I've really only stuck to selling, honestly, my bulk cards. Like, I think the most expensive card I have listed is $20. I've done a $15 sale. I've done like a $12, $10 sale. But for the most part, I'm really selling like $1 to $5 cards. So if something did happen, if I did kind of get screwed over by this loophole system, it wouldn't be the end of the world for me. But it is annoying nonetheless, right? So I would say keep in mind of that, and definitely do your due diligence when it comes to selling on Mercari as well. Maybe just list everything for 3 ounces if you don't want to risk that happening. So let's kind of get into now some of the, at least my personal experience with Mercari compared to eBay and TCG Player and some of the other platforms. I've kind of talked about the differences just with some of the pros and cons, but in general, let me kind of give you my opinion after using the app or the platform for about a month and a half now. So I would say overall, it's not too bad. It's not as bad as I thought it was, at least. I'll say when it comes to like eBay and TCG, like eBay in general has been around for much longer, right? So you're just going to have more reputable sellers, you're going to have a larger audience, you're going to have more buyers and more sellers, and I'll kind of talk about the pros and cons of that just in general from a business perspective. And then TCG Player is literally built for local stores, right? Local stores usually don't have an online platform that they sell their cards for, and TCG Player was sort of designed for local card shops to be able to sell their cards online, and that's sort of their main goal. So generally, although it's sort of a meme with TCG Player that, they'll sell it for near mint and it comes back like damaged, it's generally built on reputation of actual physical stores that you can go to in person and, they'll sell through TCG Player. I know I've done a lot of dealings with specific local stores through their TCG Player account. So it's definitely not as bad as most people make it out to be, but because there's no pictures on TCG Player, right? You never know what you're going to get. You have to basically trust that seller knows what near mint and lightly played is. And you're always going to have debates here and there when it comes to that. But overall, those are the two biggest platforms, I would say. You've got like Facebook Marketplace, you've got like Amazon, and you've got some other selling platforms. But overall, I think eBay and TCG Player are the two biggest platforms when it comes to trading card sales. And if I was going to compare Mercari to both of those, I would say Mercari is still probably in third. The only benefit, like I say, from Mercari that I've noticed is the lack of selling fees. That is relevant right now. The bigger that they get, they may then start to add more of those fees because it may benefit them. You can't really predict that. I know eBay wasn't as bad when it first started, and now it's pretty brutal when it comes to the selling fees. So Mercari might do the same. So the only thing I would say when it comes to that is try and hop on it now while you can, right? Get on there early, be an early adopter-ish. I mean, it's been around for a while now, but still early adopter when it comes to selling trading cards on the platform. They offer so many cool incentives when it comes to, selling and buying on there. So take advantage of those while you can, because that's generally what a new market or a new platform is going to do to kind of draw people to sell and buy on that platform. So I don't mind that part of it. But overall, like from a sales perspective, like the one positive thing I've seen is that I'm selling like cards that you wouldn't be able to sell on TCG Player or eBay. $1, $2 cards that really aren't worth $1 or $2. Like, I've sold cards on TCG Player that are worth 20 cents, and I've sold them on Mercari for $1, and I actually get that full dollar, right? Where on TCG Player, I'm only going to get like pennies to the dollar, right? So I've actually done a pretty decent job of selling my bulk on Mercari, which is quite nice, and you're getting it for a good price, right? So I'll say that's a pretty positive thing. I have tried to test in terms of what I sell, because I sell pretty much everything. I sell sports cards, I sell Pokemon, Yu-Gi-Oh, Magic. I sell pretty much everything, and so I've tested putting on Pokemon cards, like some soccer cards, football cards, baseball cards. I recently put a lot of sports cards on, like this past week, and none of them have sold so far. The only major solds I've had is cards that I've sold recently have been One Piece and Pokemon. So I'd suggest if you have a large inventory of those two, that might be your best bet to get a lot of sales on Mercari. But in the past month and a half, I've sold. I've got like 30 reviews now. I know I've made like at least over $100. So to be honest, that's better than my eBay store, in terms of what I've managed to sell on there in the past 30 days. Now, I haven't really updated my eBay inventory, and obviously everything on Mercari is newly listed, so generally that could be a big factor, and there's obviously other factors as well. But I will say that I've been pretty successful, starting with 0 reviews and now getting all the way up to 30 within less than a month. Now I look a little more reputable when it comes to being a seller, and hopefully I can continue to, sell more things through Mercari and generally get a bit more of a clientele and customer base. So that's quite nice. So I will say that's a pretty big positive to Mercari, at least personally for me, and it's been worth it, I would say. And then I would also say when it comes to like the likes of eBay or TCG Player, there are definitely pros and cons with selling on any platform, but what you've got to take into account, and this is just from a business perspective and sort of what I learned in college and other like entrepreneurial classes and things like that, and just in simulations that I've trialed and errored, with a lot of these big markets, you've got to kind of understand, especially with eBay, let's just use eBay as an example, right? You've got a lot of buyers, and you've also got a lot of sellers. So you have a lot of competition as a seller and a lot of competition as a buyer, right? So in general, and there's a lot of factors that go into this, but in general, the best way that you can succeed in a market that established, and you're going to be a seller amongst thousands that have the exact same card as you. So unless you have a super unique inventory, you're not really going to get as many sales as you think you would, right? The only way that you can separate yourself usually from other sellers is your price. That's usually the biggest factor. If you sell these cards for much cheaper than everyone else, then generally, people don't really care about, a lot of people, good buyers will care about the quality and will care about your reputation, but in general, they will go for price 95% of the time over anything else, right? They just want it cheap as possible. They will take the cheaper option and take the risk of it not being exactly what they wanted. So in those bigger markets, like on eBay, the only way to really set yourself apart from all the other sellers is by making it as cost efficient as possible, as cheap as possible, which they also have all the other fees on top of that, so you're basically not getting anything as a seller, right? You're not making any profits, right? So overall, that's kind of what will happen when you have a market as big as that. Yes, you get more eyes on your products. Yes, you have like an international, level of popularity and people looking at it, lots of different buyers, so you are giving yourself a better chance of selling a card. But what's to stop that buyer from going, well, somebody's selling it for 50 cents cheaper, I'm going to go with them? There's not a lot, right? They're going to probably do that. So that would be one of the biggest downsides of selling on a market that's well established. You've just got a lot more competition, whereas Mercari right now, there isn't as much competition. So even if you've got cards that other people have, if you know what you're doing, if you know what you're selling, and you're selling for legitimately good prices, there's those other sellers, like I say, that don't really know what they're doing. They just see a Pokemon card and assume it's $80 when it's really $2, and they'll just post it for that. That's never going to sell. Somebody else is going to look for that exact same card and then buy from me because it's at its price, the price it should be. It's at $2, and they're going to buy that. So I would just say, like, your inventory will be more unique on Mercari because there's just in general less sellers, and although there isn't as many buyers as you'd think, there's more, I don't want to use the word naive buyers, but there's more people that aren't in the know from a buyer perspective. So, like, let's just use One Piece, for example, right? It's one of the most popular, it's my favorite anime of all time, but it's an extremely popular anime. And people might not, actually play the game themselves. They may not play the game themselves. They may just like a favorite character from the show. And I'm selling like a Yamato, for example, and I put it up for $1. It's like a 10-cent card on TCG Player because it's not useful in the decks that it's used in. It's not a useful card in game, so most people don't need it and won't buy it. But there's a fan of One Piece that likes Yamato. It's like their favorite character. Oh, they're like, oh, it's $1, it's cheap. Like, yeah, I'll just buy that. You've got basically an anime fan that has looked at a piece of artwork on a card and wants to buy it for that reason, not to buy it to play with it, right? And, they can do whatever. I can't, 100% prove that, but I'm just saying in general, you're going to find more of those buyers that want to buy something because they enjoy it and want to collect it rather than use it for, actually building a deck and playing competitively. I'm sure if you're smart and you want to try and find deals as a competitive player, you will go and try and buy off Mercari too, because you might get a cheaper deal, or like I say, you may get a credit system to give you a card for free compared to eBay and TCG Player, and you still have pictures at the end of the day, so you can still do your due diligence a little bit there and make sure that the card you want is near mint. But in general, you're going to have, like I say, more not in the know, let's just say, buyers and sellers. And if you are in the know, you can sort of take advantage of that, if you will, and really kind of set yourself apart in the smaller market that is Mercari. So overall, I would say it's worth it. I would say try it out. I wouldn't, like I say, I see a lot of people post really expensive cards. I get a bit hesitant with that. I originally was going to put some PSA cards up there that are, over $100. Yes, you get all your money, you get the full $100, but it's still such a new platform, and there are still quite a lot of loopholes that the buyers can do to sort of manipulate the sales, that I wouldn't necessarily trust super expensive cards yet on Mercari. There's still a couple little things that they need to do to kind of add that more trust. On eBay, I know 100% that support's going to probably be on my side 100% of the time. So if something fishy's going on, I know I'm going to be able to get my money back, or I know I'm going to be able to get my card back, or whatever the case might be. I have there's not as much risk on eBay, right? And that's definitely a pretty big positive thing from a seller's perspective. But in Mercari, I still don't quite trust 100% of a lot of the buyers and the selling processes that they've got set up. But that being said, selling $1 to $5 cards where you can get your full profit for that, I think that's free. I think that's such a good, from a business perspective or from a seller's perspective, that's so useful, because generally these $3 or $4 cards are really going to go for $1.50, and then after the fees on these other platforms, you're probably only going to see $1, or you're only going to see 50 cents, where you might be able to sell it on Mercari for $3 and get $3 for it, right? So I think from a bottom line perspective, that's a bit better, selling through Mercari with those sort of cheaper cards. So that's what I would suggest you do when you sell on Mercari, specifically that. And if you buy on Mercari, utilize the store credits, utilize the bundle system, utilize the messaging system, the comment system, utilize all those things and try and get the best deal you can. And, again, maybe you'll find a seller that you really like and you want to continue to buy from and you trust. That's what I try and do with anything I sell online, no matter the platform. I like to try and build up a reputation, and I'm always incentivized from a customer satisfaction point of view. I'm always trying to make sure I get the best deal for my customers and make sure that the process goes well. I've done 1,000+ sales now, so I kind of know the best way to ship. I know the best formulas when it comes to that stuff without any issues. So in general, that's just going to come with the territory when it comes to selling on different platforms. But overall, to answer the question, is Mercari worth it? I'd say yes. I'd say it's worth trying out. Like I say, you can use my my referral code in the description below, get you a free $10 card at least off the rip that you can use as credit to buy a card. And they've got some really good selling promotions too, so if you list a certain amount and sell a certain amount, then we both get paid for it type of thing. It's not a big deal if you don't. I just thought I'd throw it out there, of course, just so we can help each other out. And that is going to do it for this video, everyone. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this review of Mercari, then please let me know down below. Like, comment, subscribe, do all that good stuff. It really does help out the channel. And again, I can do reviews like this in the future if you want me to review other platforms, kind of give you my bird's eye view of a personal trial and error experience, you know, unbiased opinion of certain things that they do well and need to work on. So again, if you like this, then let me know. Otherwise, thank you very much for watching, and I will catch you in the next video.